Hi, it's Taryn. Welcome back to the Blind Homemaker. Today we're going to go back to our non-visual cooking made easy series, and I'm making chocolate chip scones. Okay, so here I have 2 cups of flour. You can use any kind of flour that you like. I just ground this with my grain mill, and this is soft white wheat. And everything you're going to need, hopefully I can remember everything off the top of my head, but if I forget anything, the recipe will be in the description. So you're going to need butter, heavy cream, chocolate chips, vanilla, salt, baking powder, and I think that's it. Yes. So we are making a pastry, and in order to make a pastry, you have to cut butter into flour. And for so many years, I just was like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't really want to do that. So I found an easier way to make pastry. I have butter here that just came out of the refrigerator. It's cold, cold, cold. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a handheld cheese grater, and I'm going to grate my butter. And I'm going to use that in my flour. So I don't have to cut this into tiny, tiny chunks. I don't have to use a pastry blender. That all sounds like too much work for me. And if it's too much work, baby, I'm just not going to do it. So you are going to need 6 tablespoons to your 2 cups of flour. That's all I'm doing right now, and trying not to grate the foil. I'm using this Kirkland grass-fed butter. I love it. It's very similar to Kerrygold. I love Kerrygold. Okay, there we go with that. I have my cheese grater's just sitting on a paper plate. So I'm gonna pick up my cheese grater and shake out all the little ribbons of butter. And next I'm gonna take off my rings because I don't want to get them all messy. What you want to do is pour your grated butter into the bowl with your flour. And what we're gonna be doing here is just coating the outside of these little ribbons of butter with the flour. And you want to try to handle this as little as possible because the warmth from your hands can melt the butter. And we don't want that. The whole purpose of the butter being in with the flour is to create little pockets of butter. And as the scones cook, it will make the pastry really flaky, having those little chunks of butter all throughout the dough. So I am just very, very gently breaking up the butter with my fingers and coating it fully in the flour. And this is so much easier than having to use a fork to smush the butter into the flour. I've done that for biscuits, and I just think it sounds too much like work. So I just don't want to do that. Okay, I've got this all combined together. Looks nice. So now I'm going to add the rest of my dry ingredients. So I've got my baking powder. Let me grab a spoon. And you're going to need a teaspoon of baking powder. So in that goes. And next, we're going to do salt. I keep my salt in these cute little mason jars, and I just keep it on the back of my stove. So it's just right there, along with the other spices I use on a regular basis. And you're gonna need just a good pinch of salt. And you add salt to sweet dishes because it helps bring the sweetness out. It's a flavor enhancer. So definitely don't forget your salt. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but it's definitely necessary. And you're gonna use some sugar. You're gonna need a 1/3 cup of sugar. And this is a dessert, okay? It's not a health food. My youngest daughter loves scones so much, to the point I made maybe 3 batches back to back, and she was eating them constantly. I had to be like, okay, calm down on the scones. And now we're gonna do a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. The heavy cream, you may need a little bit more. It just depends on the hydration of your flour and where you live. You may need more, or start on the lower side, because you can always add, but you can't take away. So a 1/3 cup of this cream. And I think I will, just based on the other times that I've made this recipe, I think I will need more cream, but I'd hate to add a ton right now, and that'd be a mistake. Also, you're gonna add some vanilla, a teaspoon of vanilla. Delicious. Maybe a little bit more, you know? Okay, what I'm going to do, oh, you know what? We need an egg too. I have an egg. This came from our chickens. Our chickens are finally laying. We actually have an abundance of eggs now, thank goodness.
Finally earning their keep.
Seriously, it's not fun to pay for chicken feed and eggs. Like, what? Come on now. Okay, what I'm going to do is my hands are clean. I'm going to use one hand to combine this together, and you want it just combined, because again, you do not want that butter to melt, because you want beautiful flaky layers in your scones. So I'm using one hand, I just broke up the egg, one hand to combine this into a shaggy dough. This is not going to be like a pancake batter or a muffin batter or anything like that. It's going to be a shaggy dough. So as I'm combining, my batter is not sticking together. It's falling apart. So that means I do not have enough cream. So I am gonna add some more cream. And how I'm going to do this to judge how much I'm adding, I have a clean hand, I have a dirty hand. I'm going to pour the cream into the hand that has the dough, just so I could feel how much I'm adding. Because again, you don't wanna over add and add too much. That would be not great. Let's add a little more cream. And you could do lots of different variations of this. I'm doing chocolate chip today just because it's classic and everybody loves it. But I think what I may do next time is do a blueberry. I'm adding still a little bit more cream. I may do a blueberry scone with a lemon icing. That sounds delicious. So now my dough is all coming together into a ball. At this point, it's all come together into a ball. At this point, I am going to add my chocolate chips. You're gonna add, measure with your heart, a 1/2 cup, however much you want really. So I have my chocolate chips in a mason jar, a 1/2 gallon mason jar. We use a lot of chocolate chips, and it's cheaper if you buy them in bulk. And sometimes, as a mom, you just need a handful of chocolate chips to get through the day. So, add in my chocolate chips. Again, I have one clean hand and one hand with dough on it. So I'm just using my clean hand to reach into my jar to grab my chocolate chips. And you're just going to barely fold this until the chocolate chips are combined. Again, you do not want to over mix. I'm just combining this in together. These are gonna be so good with some coffee or some tea. My kids are gonna be very happy. I like to try to keep some kind of sweet made up for them, a little treat. Okay, now, a little behind the scenes. This is actually take like 3 of doing this. I already have a whole nother set of dough behind me because we found out that the phone wasn't recording, and I also did a silly and I did not spray down my counter. So make sure you spray your counter down. I'm using avocado oil spray because you're going to turn your dough out onto the counter and you don't want it to stick. Okay, and my counter is clean. So I'm plopping my dough out onto the counter. It's in a ball. You can also spray your hands too if you're worried that your hands are going to stick. What we're gonna do here is we are going to make a circular disc, kind of like a pizza crust. That's what we're doing here. And you want the dough, I would say about an inch thick, and a circular-ish disc of dough, you know? Do your best. It's your kitchen. It's still gonna taste delicious. So I've got this out into a circular-ish shape. And how you're going to cut this is literally just how you cut a pizza. Just straight down the middle, horizontally, diagonal, diagonal, boom. And just do your best to make them even-ish. Again, the ish. You may want to have a piece that's mom size for you, and then maybe a smaller piece for everybody else. You did the work. You know, while I'm doing this, I do want to ask too that everyone hit that subscribe button. I have lots of people that watch the videos, but a lot of you aren't subscribed, and it would literally make my day. It's my birthday week. It would make my day if you subscribe to the channel. So pretty please do that. It just helps other people find the channel. And I've got a mission here. I want to show everybody, the world, and other blind homemakers what we can do without vision. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. I cut my scones, and now I'm going to put it on a lined cookie sheet, and my oven is preheated to 400. Yesterday was Easter, and I think we used all the parchment paper. So I'm using foil, but if I had my druthers, I would be using parchment paper. So these are going to look like little slices of pizza, and I'm going to place them on a cookie sheet. Excuse my kitchen, it may be a little messy. And you want to give them space. Don't crowd your pan too much. And I'm just using a bench scraper, which is pretty much a spatula, but it has a very short handle, not a long handle, and you don't use it for like flipping things in a pan. You literally use it to scrape stuff off of your counter. Fun fact, other countries call counters a bench. So that's why it's a bench scraper. I'm assaulting you with useless knowledge, but if I have it in my head, you do too. So I'm just going to continue placing my little scones on my cookie sheet, and this is going to go into the oven for, we're going to start checking it at about 17 minutes, and they will get golden brown on top. But what I just usually do is I will touch one of them and see, look, we have a mama piece, which is like double one of these other pieces. So that one will be mine. I don't remember what I was saying, but oh yes, I usually touch the top of it, and if it doesn't have any give, it's ready. At this point, you can also brush the top of these with heavy whipping cream. I'm not going to, because we are going to make an icing. So I'm gonna pop these in the oven, and I'll bring you back when I take them out. While the scones are in the oven, let's go ahead and make our icing. So what you're gonna need is the heavy cream, again, the vanilla, again, and some powdered sugar. So we are going to start, oh, I lost my cup. For you people who don't think I'm actually blind. But we're gonna start with about a cup of powdered sugar in a bowl. This isn't like hard and fast. I'm gonna make actually probably a little bit extra, because remember, I have 2 batches that I'm making. And we're going to do a couple of little dashes of vanilla, so like just a little splash. If you really want to measure, I would say about 1/2 teaspoon. And you need just a very small amount of liquid. I can't tell you how many times when I started making icings, I added too much liquid. It's very easy to do. And we're gonna add about a tablespoon of the heavy cream. And now I just have a fork, and I'm going to just start mixing this together. And it takes a little bit for everything to get combined. And you may have to add a little bit more heavy cream, but again, it's better to start with not enough and add more, because you can't take away. Well, I guess if it really happens, you could just add more powdered sugar. So I'm using one hand to just feel the texture, and it definitely needs more heavy cream. This is like natural cream. So part of the issue with it is it's almost like turning to butter at the top. So there's like a thick layer of like butter, and I'm having to kind of like get past that to pour the liquid cream out. So it's a little bit harder to pour. So we're just gonna mix. And what I'm going to do is when the scones come out of the oven, I'm going to let them cool for a minute, and I'm going to use a pastry brush after about 10 minutes to brush this icing on top. You can also drizzle, but I prefer how it is when it's brushed on. Adding still a little bit more heavy cream. I think too, this cream is really thick, so I'm adding more than I usually would. We're almost there. And if you wanted to make a flavored icing, how I was talking about the lemon glaze, if you wanted to do that, instead of adding heavy cream, you would omit the vanilla and then just add lemon juice or lime juice. That would be cool too. This is about to come together. And the heat from the scone, it won't be super piping hot, but the warmth, I guess, from the scone will kind of melt the icing as we put it on. So I'm making kind of like of a thicker consistency. Again, I'm gonna add a tiny bit more cream. I'm trying not to overdo it. And I'm doing the same thing I did before. I have one hand that is messy from the icing so I could feel the texture, and another hand that's clean. So I'm using my clean hand to pour over, I just did it over my index finger just now to feel how much I was pouring, because the cream is thick and the bottle is heavy. So I can't, like with the vanilla, I can kind of feel, because it's pretty thin consistency and it's a small bottle, I can feel more or less how much I'm pouring, but with something like this heavy cream, I can't. So that's how I would tell. All right, that's about it. So I will bring y'all back when I take the scones out of the oven and I put this icing on top. I think these are done. They're smelling toasty. Alexa, stop. What are the odds of that? So the 15-minute timer did already go off and they weren't quite done yet. All right, movie star, I'm going where you are. All right, so let me touch these. Yep, these are done. They feel done and they smell done. So I'm going to let them cool for a little bit and I'll bring you back when I ice them. These have cooled a good bit, so I'm going to ice them. I just have a little silicone pastry brush. I'm just gonna brush them all with some icing. I'll have a good bit of icing left over because I have a whole other pan to do. I'm sure my husband and kids won't mind that we have a little extra. Especially Scarlett, she loves a scone. I'm curious, if y'all have made it this far in the video, leave in the comments just for the algorithm, what's your favorite baked good? Is it scones? Is it muffins, cake, pie, cupcakes? What is it? Especially because my birthday's coming up. My favorite is lemon bars. Forget cake, I don't want any of that stuff. I love lemon bars, and that's pretty much what they make me for like Mother's Day or my birthday, anything like that. I get lemon bars. Even the other day my husband made waffles and I was telling him that I wanted for Mother's Day waffles with lemon curd on top. I just love the tanginess of citrus. All right, that's them all ice. I think I'm gonna try to scoop one up. Oh, there's the spatula. They can fall apart, so I'm always worried about this. Ah, made it. There we go. Scones. That's it. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and until next time, happy homemaking.